next panel discussion we have is on a very common question amongst the budding entrepreneurs these days, whether to opt for a job or go with the flow of entrepreneurship. To help you out with these very much pondered upon thought, I would like to call upon stage Mr. Anupam Mittal, CEO, People's Group, Shadi.com. Mr. Siddhartha Menon, co-founder, Crowdfire. Mr. Munjal Kamdar, Director, Deloitte. Ms. Lakshmi Rebecca, founder, Red Bangles Production House.
Hello, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you. So you have to first tell us how much time we have. Is it half an hour plus Q&A or is it half an hour plus Q&A? Okay, thank you. Well, hi everybody. Are you having a good day? Awesome. Oh, that doesn't sound like yes. Are you having a good day? That's more like it. Thank you so much. Well, it's great to be here and great to be with the three awesome gentlemen. And the topic, of course, is a very interesting one. And I'm sure you're at a point in time in life where you're constantly thinking about this. And, 1,000 different people must be giving you 100 different types of advice on what to do next with your career, right? And if you're here in this room, that probably means a lot of you are excited about entrepreneurship. So, I'm going to sort of dive right into the topic and ask all our panelists here this question, and you have to answer this in 2 sentences or less. Okay? What are the 2 biggest advantages to the career choice that each of you have made? We have 2 entrepreneurs here, and one person who's not an entrepreneur, but I'm sure is an intrapreneur, and I myself run my own business. So the 2 biggest advantages to the career choices that each of you have made.
I think for me it was more towards solving a problem, and I had a vision for that, and this sort of choice helped me actually chase that vision towards what I would really want to do, and I think that's the biggest advantage. You have that freedom, and you have people with you who actually share the same vision, sort of trying to solve that problem. So for me it's that.
Okay.
So 2 sentences you said?
Yes.
1, I get to define the rules. 2, I can never get fired.
I would say 2 things. One is, of course, I spent 10 years as an entrepreneur. I ran 2 startups, and then I've been working in a consulting firm for the last 5 years. And I know you might not like me hearing this, but I'm enjoying working in the consulting firm. But I would say 2 things. One reason why I think startups or running your own business is great is if you're passionate about what your idea is, right? Then it's really good. One thing good about working in a job is that you get to work with people who are smarter than you.
Okay, so I have a question for you since you mentioned that you did 2 startups before you joined Deloitte. How different has it been for you after running those 2 startups, now being in a consulting firm, and why the switch?
Yeah, so in terms of how it's different, it's very different. I think I was just mentioning to them at backstage that, in the first 2 years when I worked with my current firm, I think they wanted to fire me. They thought I was useless. They didn't know they felt I didn't know what I was doing, right? And I'm happy to say that I'm doing very well now. So this transition is very difficult. The first thing that you'll notice, and I'm talking about working for a large firm, right? It's 200,000 people, 36 billion in turnover. It's a huge firm. Is the first thing that hits you is the bureaucracy, right? Which you never have. As he mentioned, you get to make your own rules, right? It doesn't work there. The second thing is accepting the intellectual superiority of people who know things more than you do, right? That's a challenge you will face. Internally, it hurts your ego.
So how did you come to choosing the transition, switching from being an entrepreneur to being employed as a consultant?
Yeah, so for me, it was, of course, I was running the second startup in Canada. I came back to India for personal reasons, and then I got headhunted. So it was more out of curiosity. I said, look, let me see what it's like to work in a large firm. And you'll be surprised that a lot of firms now, large firms work in a very entrepreneurial way, right? That's a good thing. I don't know if you realize that, if you get that, but they give you a lot of freedom to operate. So I think my role gave me what I wanted, and I'm enjoying working there.
Fantastic, thank you. And Anupam and Siddharth, question to you: how did you come to being entrepreneurs in the first place? How did you come to starting
To
up?
be honest with you, I got fired from my job. It's the God honest truth. No, so the story is, look, at some level, I've always been an entrepreneur because I grew up in a business family, and really all I ever heard growing up is my dad talking on the phone about setting up factories and selling something or clearing out stock or working capital. So that's all the language I knew, really.
So did you sort of warm up to the idea early on, you think?
You know, to be honest with you, I wasn't even, and even till today, when people ask me about when did you figure out what you want to do, my response is I still don't know what I want to do, right? I'm still figuring out what I want to do.
You're
What
a
is that?
bad example today.
No,
But
it's the truth.
Speak
I
on.
could tell you something that sounds very glorified, but it's the truth. I'm trying to find that one thing that I want to do life after life. But the way I fell into entrepreneurship, and that's probably the way to look at it, I'm an accidental entrepreneur or destiny entrepreneur, if you want to call it that, is I lived in the US for about 10 years, and I was working there. I was part of this whole dot-com boom and bust. Many of you are very young to even remember that, but one of the companies I worked with called MicroStrategy, a bunch of us started something within called strategy.com. And this company went from $100 million in market cap to about 40, 50, $60 billion in a matter of about 2 to 3 years, right? And many of us were worth, and this was in our early to mid 20s, millions of dollars very, very quickly, right? We were all ordering Ferraris and Porsches, which never came because the dot-com bust happened after that. And very quickly, I was laid off my job. And fortunately for me, though, and this is the one thing that us Indians do very well, right? While we are doing something, we always think, "Aur kya kar sakta hu? Iska jugaad kaise karu? Ye kaise karu?" Now, I had started one small company as a web development company on the side in India. So I kind of glorified that in my head, and I said, I don't have this big job, and I was still dealing with the hurt of losing all that money because I never invested it wisely. I lost everything. I was in debt. And so I was still in that glorified world, and I started to look at this small little setup I had here with a bunch of designers and engineers, and I glorified it in my head to think about how we'll build the next big company out of India, and I pretty much returned back to India, and that's kind of how I fell into entrepreneurship, and one thing led to another.
Okay, thank you for that. And Siddharth?
Yeah, it's a long story. Anyway, so right from kid, like when I was a kid, I used to build things. I used to make radios and DIY radios while I was in school, and I used to open all these RC cars, build some small system wherein you walk into a room, it turns on the light, all those stupid silly things, right? So yeah, so that was the the engineering side of it, I would say, the problem solving side of me. Later, while I was in college, I started building something called as VTalk. It was all about creating all these community together, like tech community online, and also I was part of a lot of community as well. So I just enjoyed, getting people together, working with them, or sharing knowledge, etc. And that just got me in. Later, I had a couple of startups. One of them was 3 Crumbs, which was about finding cool things to buy, right? And this was again a community-based thing where people. I was into buying quirky things, very different things, and I just wanted to create a community where people can share where they bought it from, and whatever price, and like that, you can create a community around that. And that was amazing. Like, it was first mobile app, right? Right before the whole mobile thing started. So I had fun with that. And currently at CrowdFi, it just amplifies everything that I had. The whole thing of creating stuff around community, building things around it, and just working on that whole solution, right? So how to get 2 people connected with the same passion. It can be an individual, it can be a musician, it can be a lot of things, right? So it can be even getting IITians together as a community, and that is what drives us. I'm just really happy that I'm somewhere there where I can probably exercise this and solve this every day. So yeah, that's how I got into entrepreneurship.
Looks like all 3 of you had an enterprising streak right from the beginning, and you kind of explored that. I think even when you were employed, you wanted to do something on the side. Aur kya kar sakte hain, And I will just add my perspective to this, because they're all men, I have to represent the other gender. So I started my business 5 years ago, just trying to make sense of my own career. I was anchoring, I was consulting as a marketer. I came from a social research for documentary films background. And I was just trying to make sense of it all, and that's how the film production house came about and my online talk show came about. I still am a professional anchor, and it's been a fun, awesome journey. We turn 5 next month, I think, yeah. We've made over 300 films, and it's been awesome. But I was also once upon a time employed, and I think I didn't realize that I was someone who liked the variety that being enterprising brought with it, the kind of places you go to, the kind of new people you're constantly meeting, and the new challenges always thrown at you. And I think same with entrepreneurship. If you're someone who likes to grow and always wants to try new things, it's the same thing. There's a variety that brings that. Sometimes if you're in a more steady sort of growth path in an employed role, you don't get. And if you're not happy in particular with the kind of job you've taken, then it can be very, very frustrating. So that brings me to the next question, and that is...
But Rebecca, variety can also mean cleaning the bathrooms, right?
Absolutely. That too. Absolutely. When you're starting, you do everything. Chai banana sabke liye. Absolutely.
That's the flip side of variety. You know, they often say variety is a spice of life, but it can mean a lot of things, so you got to be careful.
That is true. That is true. So you got to be okay with that, right? You got to be okay with that. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It keeps you grounded. So my next question to all of you is that, do you think there's something in your personality, in the way you look at yourself, or you look at life, or in what you desire out of life, that predisposes you one way or another towards, let's say, being, in a steady sort of job without too many ambitions, or being an entrepreneur, being an excited leader within a large or medium-sized or even small organization, as opposed to being an entrepreneur? Do you think there's some trait or a few traits in each of you that predisposes you towards one direction or another?
Yeah, so I think, I guess the umbrella question in there is there a certain mindset that predisposes you to entrepreneurship or a job, right?
Characteristics, personality,
traits, and so on. Yeah, so I do think it's a mindset thing, no question about it. There are traits that predispose you to entrepreneurship or a job. Having said that, I'm not suggesting that you can't develop that mindset or traits. Most certainly anybody can. But some people have it ingrained in them or are born with it, and others don't. For example, if you get disappointed too quickly, entrepreneurship is going to be tough. You got to be really thick-skinned and be able to take a lot of no's before you get to the yeses. If you like doing things, for example, a lot more than sort of selling a lot, entrepreneurship is once again tough, because a lot of your job involves selling, and you're not necessarily going to be doing the thing that you really love to do. So I think, entrepreneurship is very challenging from a lot of fronts. You do need to be very, thick-skinned in a lot of ways. And so, I look at myself, and I do find that, either it's passion or the restless quality that makes you want to sit up and go after every opportunity, drive you in a certain way, and hence succeed as an entrepreneur. One of the things that I talk about a lot when we talk about what it takes to succeed as an entrepreneur, and if I had to boil it down to one quality above everything else, it's perseverance, right? It's going at it day after day, year after year, decade after decade. You hear of a guy called Michael Dell, for example. You think about his company, and you go back and you look at the guy started his company when he was in college dorm room, and he's still going at it after all these years. So I think it definitely has a certain wiring that it takes, but I also think you can develop it.
Absolutely, and I think perseverance is like this golden sort of ability or strength that you acquire the longer you stick around, whether you're an entrepreneur or an entrepreneur, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, for me, I think the discipline part, what he did mention, it takes it's very important that you are disciplined towards your goal, right? So your vision, whatever you want to chase. And usually, you start with an idea, but you quickly lose it out because the reason why you started with is probably just to do business or something else, or probably to just glorify entrepreneurship. But for me, I think what drives me is I'm a product guy. So what drives me is the problem solving, right? The worldly problem solving. And that excites me. I just want to know, how can I solve a particular problem for mass? And that drives me. And I think, whenever I look at problems and whenever I look at, certain solutions, unless it's not something that is a little more mass or a little not more this thing, that it doesn't sort of drives me. And all the other things, the whole business side and etc. I think for me, I'd rather work with somebody who knows that part best than probably, focusing on the product side. So yeah, that's my side.
So as far as entrepreneurship is concerned, right, I can relate, I can give you a very easy way of knowing that. It's basically like falling in love, right? And all of you at this age, hopefully have fallen in love. I met my wife when I was 16. And you really got to love what you do, right? If you find that one idea that keeps you awake at night, right, then it may be the time for you to become an entrepreneur. So for example, in my own personal life, both my startups were focused on cybersecurity. In Deloitte, I handle cybersecurity, right? So that's something I will not let go no matter what happens because I like it. So I can be in a company, I can be an entrepreneur, but that's the work I'm going to do because I think it's great, right? I find it interesting. And so I'm not an engineer like you guys. I'm a BCom MBA, right? So I'm really inferior to you guys. But that's what I like doing. So, and that's what I'm going to pursue. So if it keeps you awake, if it really makes you passionate, maybe that's the time for you to, pursue that as an entrepreneur.
Okay, so I think we've... Sure.
Just, just reminded me of something as we were talking about passion and perseverance and things like that. I think as an entrepreneur, you have to realize one thing, and as I look back at my own experience, the last time I took a vacation was when I had a job in the US about 15 years back. When I used to come back to India to see my family for a month or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, I couldn't care if that place burned down. I used to really switch off. As an entrepreneur, you don't switch off. So you have to figure out very early on what your mindset is.
It's a Sunday, we're all here, and I actually flew in for this.
There we go, right? So if being restless and being passionate and being hyper, whatever drives you, I think entrepreneurship is great. But if that's not what keeps you or gets you going, then you probably have to think about it.
Yeah, if you want your weekends to yourself, maybe not.
Work-life balance, there is no such thing, right?
Yeah. But then let's talk a little bit about employment. Let's talk about entrepreneurship, right? You all have teams. I think some of you have really large teams. So what is it that you notice in some of the leaders in your teams that you look for, that you admire, and you think, hey, that's what makes a great leader inside the business? That's what makes a great member of the team.
Okay, so if you talk about entrepreneurship defined as being an entrepreneur within a large organization. So if you look at Deloitte, right, I said it's a $35 billion company. I mean, what is this $35 billion? It's huge, right? 200 countries. By the time you break it up, maybe 200 service lines. I mean, that's what $35 billion is, right? Within any large firm, right, you will have individuals who will drive each business, right? So that's the way we organize in India as well. And what I've seen as, people who successfully are able to lead such teams is that they really provide freedom to their subordinates to do what they want. So you actually do that where, one is you work with people who are smarter than you. Second is you let them do what they want. Third is you own the P&L. You own the profit and loss like a businessman, right? So within let's say my setup, I have, let's say, 100 employees. I know what my rate per hour should be. I know what my utilization should be. I know what my salary cost is. I know what's my overhead, right, that the firm imposes on me. So am I actually running a successful business within that small group within Deloitte? And if everybody within Deloitte runs this 2,000 successful businesses, as a $35 billion company, we'll be successful, right? So that's the way you got to look at it when you're part of a large organization, right? Don't think that somewhere this $35 billion company will make a profit, right? Each of these divisions got to make money. So that's how we run it. I mean, for us, of course, it's inherent. I'm a Gujarati Jain, so you look at money all the time. And by the way, so my family really looks down upon me if I work somewhere, right? They think, I mean, what the hell are you working?
I think even for us, whether it's a small or a big startup, everybody there is like an entrepreneur themselves, right? The best part is you don't have to worry about the other things. You don't have to worry about funding. You don't have to worry, and you can just focus on what you really love, the passion, right? What drives you, and that's how the setup is always, right? So, and the best part is you don't. When you have a setup like this, we're not looking at managers here, right? These people are not managers. They are driven by their own passion, and that helps the whole, the whole company or all the teams come together and drive towards the direction. And that's a big difference. A lot of people don't understand this, but when you work as an entrepreneur, at these roles, you actually have the freedom to take, any decision for that matter. So yeah.
So the question is, how do you spot good leaders, or what is it?
What do you look for? What makes a good entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur
Yeah.
or a good leader?
A good leader, yeah.
So for me, it's actually pretty simple. I think what I find, and a lot of people, I see this a lot, people often confuse being nice for being a good leader. And I think that's a big, big mistake. Especially I see that in India. Being liked, or other people liking you, is your own personal narcissistic endeavor. It has nothing to do with being a good leader, right?
Let me also just add over there, sorry to interrupt, but I think as an entrepreneur, you get away more with throwing your opinions in people's faces than you do as an entrepreneur.
I guess I agree. I tend to agree to that. But I think there's a little more than that, but that's a different debate for another day. But I want to come back to so I was saying being nice is, to me, a good leader really is not the guy who's liked the most. He's probably the guy who, while you're working for him, you think of him as an asshole. But when you move away, you look back and say, when you remember that one manager or leader, you say, that was the guy I excelled under. That was the guy who brought the best out of me. So to me, the leader... See, that is just my justification for being an asshole.
Wait. And they're probably clapping, thinking, hey, we have professors like that maybe. So,
But seriously, I think... leadership is all about bringing out the best in people, and that's where it starts and stops for me.
So you mentioned that your family actually looks down about the fact that you're a consultant or you're employed now, right? Now, if we look at most of us out here, that's probably the opposite scenario. Most parents are probably itching for you to go get a job and be stable, right? Don't take too many risks. And so families are a huge influencing factor. I said I'm going to do my own thing, whether or not I have your support, so I went and did my own thing. But apart from families, culture, the cultural context, today it's like the coolest thing to have a startup. If you've got your first round of funding, even better, right? You're in the news, and then you people say, okay, now you're fine, you can do this. But before that, they're like, what are you doing? I mean, will that idea even sell? Media plays a big role, friends, peer pressure. But if you move away from all of that and you've gone ahead and made a choice, whether it's a job or whether it's a startup, what is the biggest risk do you think people are actually taking at a very individual level, right? And how do you deal with that risk? So let's say risk, yeah. So let's say, for example, you after the second startup, you joined Deloitte as a consultant. What is the biggest risk you think you've taken in choosing that? To become a consultant, choosing to be a consultant, and how are you dealing with that? Or how did you deal with that?
Well, at least the way I look at it personally, it is not a risk. Because for me, it's a risk if I was passionate about the third idea and I didn't pursue it. I think I would have let an opportunity go by, and that lost opportunity is a big risk. But whatever, fortunately or unfortunately, I wasn't excited about anything else after I exited my second startup. And I got this opportunity to work at Deloitte, and I said, okay, great, cybersecurity interests me, and let me see what it is to work like in a big firm. So I think if you, again, as I said earlier, right, if you're really passionate about a certain idea and an opportunity you see in the market, I think the biggest risks always are ones that you didn't take, the chances you didn't take, rather than the chances you took, right? So
absolutely.
If you let something go by, you saw something and you said, oh, I mean, why am I not doing this? And I'll tell you another thing on the flip side. So by the way, I mean, It was a remark about my family not liking me working in Deloitte. So, but yeah, they do like me working there. But the other thing I can see is that when you have a very radical idea about changing something, right, you will not have a big chance of success in a large firm. That is again true, right? Because by the time you finish version 1 to version 8, right, and 25 presentations, your idea would have got diluted so much that you will fail to recognize what your original idea was. So maybe that time is a good time to do, your own stuff. I mean, I hear about people in Cisco, company like Cisco, right, who have sold their company to Cisco 5-6 times, right? So they create something outside Cisco, Cisco likes it, they sell it to Cisco, they come out again create something, they go back and sell it to Cisco, right? So that's the way it is, right? You want to incubate something at time. It's not always possible in a large company because a large company has its own way of working, right? They will do things in a certain way, so not always suit a startup. So I think the risk is that not doing something is the biggest risk.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I'll just say it in a slightly different way is, there's a certain magic to serendipity. And for all you non-committals like me, as soon as you commit to a job or entrepreneurship or any path, that magic of accidentally stumbling into something you absolutely love, right, living on the edge just disappears, right? And to me, that's the biggest risk. How do you deal with it? I've kind of always dealt with it in a way that, and I've had to deal with a lot because I've been extremely non-committal all my life, is by saying, look, I can just change it if I don't like it. I'll just get up and walk away. And I've managed to do that over and over again. When I've gotten tired about doing something, or I don't find myself being me in a place, in a role, or in a certain job, I simply get up and walk away. And yes, I think it's easier to say than do for a lot of people, but at least keeps me going. It comforts me that I'm able to do that.
So you're a non-committal guy who gets people committed all the time.
Yeah, isn't that great?
That's a good business to be in.
As they say, if you're dead, you're no good as an undertaker, right?
All right then. The business of love.
Okay, my story is a little different. Apart from the usual entrepreneur risk, everything, there's one very important and I think the most riskiest thing is, there was this time when we were hiring this guy. It was really awesome, really, he was completely, sold to our idea. Now, the only thing that he asked was, just make sure you give me my salary because every month he has to, send it back to his parents. And we're like, oh, this is big, right? Because then you start realizing, because every day, every month, you have to give him something so that, he's able to support himself. And we did everything that's possible to make sure he floats. And we took up loan, we took up a lot of stuff just to make sure this guy doesn't go down. And then you start realizing the responsibility that you are into, right? Like you are actually hiring people and you're playing with somebody's career and a lot of things around that. Now this is apart from the normal things that you do as an entrepreneur. You have your product coming out, etc. But this also is like, every month and you start thinking about, okay, you know what, you have to do something, for the next month. And yeah, I think this was like one of the biggest risks that we took, right?
I think I would just add to what all three of you have said, and that is that if you're looking at being employed somewhere because that's what you want and that's what you're happy with, but if you've got leadership qualities and you want to lead and you want to create and build things rather than just sort of take orders, then look to join organizations where there's good opportunity to do that, where people at the top are looking for leaders, will encourage that kind of creativity and leadership. And of course, if you're joining a startup, then that's the risk that hopefully, you're going to take home a salary. Yeah. I've been told we've got just 5 minutes left. But before I hand over to the audience for Q&A, I have to ask you, what is your one favorite quote to do with careers, whether it's leaning towards entrepreneurship or leaning towards a quote? Yeah, one favorite quote or towards a job. I'd like to go first.
So my favorite one, especially for startups, right, is that it takes you 20 years to become an overnight success.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. 20 years, 365 days, and every single day you're probably putting in 12 hours, 14 hours. So just remember that.
Mine is, start when you have learned enough to ship. And that's really important in the sense, even though it is small ship, it's very important because when you start off, you sort of, get diluted with so much focus, diluted with focus from the product that you forget to ship, what you started with. So I think that's one.
Right, that's putting me on the spot. But let's see. I guess be bold and be good and be bold and be good, and heavenly forces will come to your aid.
So I have one to add to the bucket, and that is, and I read this on someone's screensaver, it is everybody's winging it, some just do it better. So nobody has all the answers, to just go out and try whichever it is that you feel from your gut you want to do, and then you'll figure it out in your own time. So and with that,
so that question was so that Rebecca could put in her quote.
Hey, I represent the missing gender here. I got to do my bit and butt in. So
guys, sorry to interject, but my time's up. I got to leave for another session. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Anupam. Thank you.
Sorry about this.
And now we'll take questions from the audience.
We have 3
Please,
questions only. Yeah.
3 questions only? Okay. All right, the first, I think, hand went up here. Is there a mic?
Yeah.
Thank you. First of all, it was really interesting panel, really interesting debate.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, so you spoke about passion in entrepreneurship. So I wanted to know, so we've seen a lot of young startups lately. So how do you, in your opinion, rate passion versus experience, especially in case of job versus entrepreneurship?
I think this sort of question, it's really important. In fact, a lot of people start with passion, and I feel, passion is one thing, but experience is another, right? And
nobody's born with experience anyway.
Right.
You got to have passion to learn the experience and gain it.
Right. So, but I somehow feel that when you start something, it's really important that you are able to focus on the things that you really love, and especially if you're starting too early, because of so much learning, you lose the focus. And I always encourage people to probably start working with shipping products. Like that's one core thing. Like when you start something, there is product phase that is important, the product cycle is important, the team cycle is important, the funding cycle is important, the revenue cycle is important. And right at the day one, because we don't have all these experience, the chances of you failing is much more. So if you somehow are into, say, good at one of the things, like say the product cycle of it, then when you start off, you have at least one thing taken care of. Like you have your friends or whoever is working with you, you have at least one thing taken care of. And then it increases the chances of success. Usually the reason why a lot of people fail is because lack of commitment and lack of experience around when dealing with all these problems. And you usually get out of this whole focus. So that's my side of it.
Did you want to add anything to that?
My personal belief is that experience is overrated. You heard Kunal Shah in the earlier session, Radhakrishna, right? All of them were pursuing business models nobody knew anything about. They themselves didn't know, right? In retrospection, everything is successful once you get a valuation, right? But otherwise, no one knew what was successful. So experience is overrated. Passion wins hands down.
Thank you. The next question, please.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm a final year undergraduate here. And what would you say about working in a startup, say, suppose very closely with a core team, or versus starting up on your own? I mean, would I learn faster working on my own startup, or would you recommend working for a startup?
By the way, I'm noticing corporate job is not keeping this.
Yeah, but I wanted to say something, and I did add to something we were discussing earlier about the entrepreneurship thing, that the best of entrepreneurs need really passionate team members to make it to where they've come. Right. So we can't do it alone. Yeah. It's not just 2 people sitting at the top and doing everything. There's like a huge team behind us to get us this far.
In fact, there's a common misconception that if you have passion, you can't be with somebody else, right?
Yeah.
You can't be an entrepreneur. So it's not like that. See, for coming back to your question, like, whether to start right now or to do. It again depends upon, where you stand, right? I generally encourage people to start when they know when they can ship a product. And that's very important because you are coming with a solution. Like, probably you guys won't like it, but then, we always start with an idea. And we say, ये idea amazing है, so क्या 4 लोग आते हैं, let's do something, ऐसा होता है. And in 6 months it's out. Why? Because there's no discipline in, because everybody's not committed in. And because this lack of certain things, right? Like, you are probably more driven by being a CEO, or you're more driven by being an entrepreneur, you're more driven by, many other things, other than the passion that you want to solve, right? If you really believe in, probably solving this particular problem and you're really passionate about it, the chances are you'll have more success, right? But if you're passionate about just being a CEO, or you're passionate about just running a business, or passionate about probably something else, the chances of failure is much more. And when you work with other people who have similar passion or similar vision, you tend to learn a lot. And this is from my personal experience, right? I've never worked somewhere else, but when I realized, when you work with somebody else, you see how things are structured, how certain things can be processed well, which with experience I know next time when I do it, I will not make the same mistakes there, So the chances of failure goes down, obviously. But passion is obviously important, right? Unless you don't have passion, there's no point starting on. But you have to pick your stuff, what is it that you're passionate about. If it is problem solving, then you better be good at shipping things. And it's okay, like even if you ship something small, even if it's an IIT, no revenue, nothing, it's okay. But you be good at it. And when you do that, you can lead a team who can do that again and again for you, right? And then slowly you can focus on other things of the product. So yeah.
Would you like to add anything? No? I think with that, it's a wrap. We're out of time. So I'm just going to say one thing, and I'm going to take a leaf out of what you shared, which is about being in love, right? So I think whichever choice you're leaning towards, just ensure that you're totally in love with the idea. Whether it's the idea of something that you want to take to market, or the idea of working somewhere with a particular team, building something with that team, it doesn't matter, but just ensure that you're totally, truly excited and in love with that idea, because that's when you'll give your 100% and you'll learn a lot and gain a lot in many, many ways from it. So all the best, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists, for the wonderful discussion. I'm pretty sure many of our attendees must have already made their minds as what they want to do in their career. Yeah, a small token of appreciation from IIT Bombay, Mr. Munjal Kamdar. Next one for Siddhartha Menon. Great moderator for the session, Lakshmi. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you so much. Thank you.